My apologies, Angelica. English was not my strong subject at school. Okay, so I think we're underway. So welcome back to Chapter 7 after last week's disaster. I don't know if Adrian, you got any response from Meeting or not?
I did not, and well, no, I haven't got any response because I put in a troubleshooting thing.
Yeah, I did too. So it's working. So that's the good news. As I said, there's a few people away today, and there's a lot of things happening. So we're going to keep going on Chapter 7. After last week, we've got to do about half of Chapter 7, but it was a very long chapter, and we're going to continue working through this chapter. We still got to go through marketing services. So I don't know who's an employee. I don't know who goes and gets jobs and things like that. We're going to talk about QQS rating. I don't know if you know what that is. The capital value of your services. Whoever came across a formula for the capital value of your services. He speaks about the 30 major causes of failure. He's got 28 questions to take advantage of yourself. I don't think we'll cover those. That'll be too much. Where and how to find opportunities and to accumulate wealth. And he has a big speech over here about capitalists and how fortunate we are because of the capitalists to be living in the world we're living in. So, and then he speaks about the law of economics. So I don't know what happened to me. I'll have to see camera. Oh, I'm back on. I'm back off. This is not Meeting's fault. This is my camera's fault. There we go. Oh, damn it. I'll change my camera to the one that looks up my nose because I've got a camera. Let's see. Okay, there we go. That's not actually the right camera, but anyway. All right, so let's keep going. The first where we're up to now is he's talking about the jobs back about 90 years ago. The new jobs were a partnership between the employer, the employee, and the public that they serve, right? And he basically went on to say that employees and employer will be employees of the public they serve. In the past, employers and employees bargained at the expense of the third party. That's the public they served. The Depression served as a mighty protest from an injured public. So I suppose,
it was the beginning of unions.
It was the beginning of the unions, but the other thing is, are we finding in today's world that we're starting to slip back into, especially after COVID, are people starting to expect the government to look after them, or do you think we've still got enough capitalists happening out there? Anyone? Napoleon Hill, I can see your daughter. She's hiding. Come on, Gregory. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I believe in this country, yes. Yes and no. I was a little surprised in the book to hear that there was so many people expecting handouts and wanting to live off the government back in Napoleon Hill's time. I did not realize that. It sounds a lot like today. I see a lot of that today, and but capitalism is still here. People have actually more opportunity now than they did back then, but they have to realize it. They have to want something instead of just wanting people. I've seen people work harder at not doing anything and trying to get out of doing things than they ever had to do when they actually did do work. It's mind-boggling sometimes to see how hard someone will work and think on how to get out of doing things and get something for nothing, where they can apply just a small portion of that effort to doing something and live a better life.
Yeah, look, thanks Napoleon Hill. We got Napoleon Hill with us today. But I've actually got, sorry, before we go, Adrian, I just wanted to say something, and my camera's mucking around. But I actually have a friend of mine who is a recruitment consultant, and she was telling me last year that she cannot get anybody a job under $60,000 because they all living off welfare, and they've discovered that it's better to earn half the amount but have 5 days a week than give up 5 days of your life to earn just a little bit more. Adrian, what do you have to say?
I'd say it's there was a lot of noise during COVID about the universal wage for everybody, just where everybody gets the same salary from the government, regardless of whether they're on welfare. That's all gone quiet. And then what I saw late last week is just something very interesting on, I think it might have been TikTok or Reels, a girl saying, people always ask me, what's my dream job? She said, my job is not a dream. She say, I dream of a lifestyle where I travel and enjoy my life and have a source of income. So I think it has changed for a lot of people. I don't know what the percentages are in Australia for people on welfare. And it makes a lot of sense if a recruitment consultant has said that people are waiting for it to go past that threshold. The opportunity cost of not having the lifestyle and doing something for more money but less freedom.
Well, the question begs then is, are the people of Australia, and I won't speak about America, are they being underpaid for their services now because they would rather not work and get $30,000 or $40,000 than to work, get $60,000, pay $15,000 in tax. So they end up with $45,000. So for an extra $100 a week, perhaps are we not getting paid a fair value for our services? And are we heading back, as he said earlier on? The depression was the public and inter-public saying that we're not getting a fair deal. Are we still not getting a fair deal?
I disagree. Australia's it's one of the highest paid individuals in the world. I mean, we're well paid, well educated. It depends on the circumstances. It's very hard to have a broad look at this because you can compare it to casual workers, to full-time workers, to company owners. It's all a matter of choice depending on their circumstances. And the fact that we have a choice is a good thing. But it's I think we're debating the wrong thing because I think it steers away from what the chapter talks about, which is the purpose of organising and planning. He goes through so many subjects, but the first one is leadership skills and understanding the mastermind. And you can't do anything great without a mastermind. And we were discussing that before everyone came on, of how difficult it can be to find the right mastermind people. But then understanding there's a universal law that when you're ready, the right people will come into your life to create that mastermind that you need. And then understanding the leadership skills that you need to have to fulfill your ultimate goal is what I got out of the chapter. I know he talks about a whole heap of other stuff, but I don't want to talk too long.
All right, Angelina or Angelica? Before we start, can you clear up how do we pronounce your name properly? We still can't hear you.
Can't hear you. You're on mute. Still can't hear you.
So Angelica, in the menu, if you click the menu button, if you're on the computer,
It's up
there
the
should
top.
be audio and video settings, and there's a microphone. You might have a few different microphones.
It'll be
on that-
red. You press it and it'll turn green. It's at the top of your screen.
Got it. You can hear me now, right?
That's
Yeah,
it. Yes,
Now here.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Napoleon Hill, you're a genius.
All the time. Okay. Angelica is the English way of pronouncing it.
Thanks,
Angelica is the German way of pronouncing it. And I get Angelique, Angie, Angel, AK-47, Jelly. There you go.
All right.
Okay, so and you call me whatever you're comfortable with is what you call me.
Angelica.
I don't take that sort of thing personally at all. Okay.
Organised planning.
This is a very, very interesting and a very, very long chapter. And it actually, what occurred for me at the time that I was going through it was one of the questions that I found I had to ask myself is, hang on, what am I doing? Who said I have to work to live a life that's fun and happy? And then I found out nobody tells you have to work. That's a stipulation by the government. And it's a stipulation by the government and the society because we are conditioned to believe that we have to pay for things, everything. You name it, you've got to pay for it.
Yes.
And therefore, we make an assumption that we need a lot of money, that's number one. And number two, in order to be happy and survive this planet, we have to make as much of it as we can to satisfy what we consider ourselves the needs to have. When in fact, materialistically, we don't have to have anything. To be happy and joyful, you don't have to have anything. You just got to feel happy and joyful. If you have a look at the Maasai, they live in barren land. They have shortages of water, but they keep walking from one water hole to another. Don't know if any of you have ever had a look at how the Maasai work, but the tribal Maasai, they live and breathe the making of this absolutely magnificent, multicolored, bright-colored clothing, and you will not, I don't think you will not find a Maasai that never has a smile on their face. Now I'm talking about the Maasai tribes of Africa. So therefore it begs to question, is it a crime, is it a sin to take money from the government and then not find a work and be happy about the life you're leading and being happy about the little that you have and happy about the little material things that you have, but you're enjoying life? There's no crime and there's no sin in that at all. It all comes back down to what is going to make us and keep us happy and joyful. And it ain't money. And it ain't people. Right? What keeps us happy and joyful is the process of understanding just how wonderful everything around us is. And because we're conditioned to have a look at, climate change, oh my God, the world's dying, we've got all this funny weather happening, and oh my God, like interest rates are going up, and oh my God, and we can do this all day long. And where does it get us? It's very despairing. And yet if you jump the fence, and it's not that hard to jump it, and acknowledge the fact Mother Nature has a beautiful way of taking care of herself. I don't understand all of it. Do I have to? No, I don't. What do I accept? I accept that she's in control of her world. She controls the animals, the species, the growth, all of those things. And if she decides that a species needs to be extinct, it will be extinct. But lo and behold, there's another species coming on board, often that we don't even know about. And she's a remarkable thing. Live and let live. And if when I just place my whole life on a realm of, I'm so lucky to have what I have. As little as that. No, it's not a $10 or $37 million mansion. If somebody wants to give me that, okay, great. I'm sure I'll enjoy it. However, I've got a roof over my head. I've got a bed to sleep in. I've got food in the refrigerator. I've got a great office. I've got what I need, and more than what I need, far more. And in this day and age, we are far better off than we ever have been. And, if we think that we're not, of course, there's always ups and downsides, but you choose what side do you want to look at. And they're the questions that I asked them. That's what this chapter brought to me. And I said, do I have to be a leader? Is that what I want to do? What is a leader? So then I had to go and have a look at Brian Tracy to find out just in depth, what is leadership? What is good leadership? Well, good leadership is whatever you want to make it. I'm a firm believer of leading from the back. I call it leading from the back. It's like a quiet achiever. You don't have to be in the limelight, and you don't have to be in the front to lead. So, it's an amazing chapter, but there's a lot in it. And I would dissect it, Paul. If I were you, I would dissect it in pieces and take one piece at a time. It's too much otherwise.
Well, that's actually why we've done it over 2 nights, because there is a lot. And I am going through it piece by piece. Now, just so I agree with you, it's one of those chapters that there was so much in it. In response to your, what's it, Maasai woman, Maasai tribe in Africa.
Yeah.
I remember a story of this Australian girl that went and married one of the Maasai men, and she loved it because the men share their women. So she seemed to have a variety of partners, and she loved it.
Well, there you go. How liberal is that?
And the other thing you were talking about is happiness. One of the things both in America, because we've got Gregory from America and Australia, if we actually have a look at ourselves, we're already in the top 1% of income earners on the planet, whether you're poor or not. So in this country, we've got, I'm just going to turn you on mute, Angelica. In this country, we've got so much, we are so lucky. Nobody should not have a roof over their head. We do have Social Security. And I think that I don't know any other country that has as good a Social Security system as Australia. So we really should be lucky and very fortunate with what we are and what we do. And so that's in response to some of the things you said, Angelica. Now, I just want to go through. He mentioned the depression. He said, and this is a common theme throughout the book. He keeps saying that the cause of the depression was the greed of the people who were trying to get something with nothing, something from nothing, right? And it kind of reminds me of, I've done a bit of study with Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad. And when we went off the gold standard, right, what actually happened was our currency stopped being backed by gold. And the reason why they're doing that was because the people in the higher places stopped adding value and just started moving money around. And that's why we've got something called currency, because what is a current? It's a current. You think of it. Now, the light there needs a current to have it moving and all of that. So every time you're moving money around, it's actually losing value. And that's why it's called currency anymore. And the other thing about the dollar, if you have a look at the dollar, you used to go a dollar and then 2 lines through it. Now we go dollar and 1 line, and the reason why is because it's not backed by gold. So there's a little bit of Robert Kiyosaki coming in. All right, so getting back onto it. So do you think that, do you think we are trying to, I suppose I met everybody except for, I met everybody online. I met Anthony and Gregory and Nicolette on Facebook, and we all come up with all of these schemes where you can invest in cryptocurrency and things like that. Do you think the world's starting to slip into this something for nothing? Anybody? And okay, Adrian, and I'll unmute you if you want. I'm getting. Okay.
Am I? Oh, I'm unmuted.
Yes, you are.
I'd say, look at what's happening with Facebook. People are moving away from it because there's just so much rubbish, quick, get-rich-quick schemes. Also, people have amazing BS detectors now. They've been around the block on the internet several times, and they know what works. They know what is a trap most of the time. And people are looking for authenticity, but they are now, COVID kind of left everybody with no alternative except what they could see online and decide whether I remember in the middle of COVID making a couple of internet purchases that were not very expensive, but seriously thinking whether or not I would get it. And it wasn't that it was coming from China. It was just, I didn't buy that sort of thing through the internet. But now that it's opened up and people are making that decision whether they go back to work or what kind of work they do. They've spent a lot of time with their families. Some of them have enjoyed that. Some of them have not enjoyed that. And I'm always I don't know who said this, but a job is just over broke for most people. It's hand to mouth. When I heard that, I thought, what is the alternative? Leonardo da Vinci did not retire. Madonna has not retired. She's reinvented herself so many times. So what I coined was a 4-word description of what work means, and that really comes down to what one really knows. Because if you're going to be successful in business, you either need to know it and be the specialist, or you need to know the right people who are the specialists. So that's implicit. But when it comes down to it, you're a master of your art. It's your life's work, and you don't want to retire from it. You do want to retire from a job, and job is cash. Work is what is going to create your wealth. It's going to create your time that you have on the things you want to spend time on. And, people are looking for that passive income stream, maybe not as much as a get-rich scheme, or they're looking for a revenue stream. Look at the best forms of passive income. They are owning intellectual property and getting paid royalties. But at the very tip of that continuum, the easiest way to make $1 million is to counterfeit $100 notes. Now, if you can't do that and you can't steal it from a bank, the white collar version of that crime is finding a rich person and stealing their identity and having that $1 million that they own under your identity. That's the two ends of the continuum for getting it quickly without effort. So everything else in between is that you know, trading time, trading hours, trading your soul, trading your body, your brain, your knowledge, whatever, your assets, your space, your resources. So people are really doing self-determination now about how they want to live and what is the source of their income. So of course some people are going to go to welfare, some people will go below that, and some people will go above that. And the crazy thing is that you probably can't do it honestly by yourself. You need people, you need a mastermind group, you need employees, and employees are very, very, especially with the millennials, they find, and there's a lot written about that, is they are very particular employees to keep happy.
Firstly, I love I've heard of the job just over broke, but I love what one really knows, work. Very, very great stuff. Does anybody else want to add anything to what Adrian just said? Yes, Nicolette.
I think the conversation I've heard while I was overseas back in Europe was that everybody was talking about when I retire. And not just in Europe, it happens here as well in Australia. But I found that a really interesting thing. For years and years, I've always said I do things now, and I did things when I was 20 and 22. I didn't have to wait to travel the world because I need to wait till I'm 50 something to retire. What is retiring? The word retiring is like my dad is 82. He's retired 20 times and he's still working, but he's not working. He does what he loves to do. And he does something and it makes him some money, and he invests some money, and he doesn't spend too much time and energy and effort in it, but he still enjoys what he's doing. And for the rest of the day, he does everything else what he loves to do. And he might not make money and he spent the money. And I think, what is that word retire? We put such an emphasis on that. If you see as well with JFC and all that stuff, it's he started when he was, I forgot his name for a second, but he started when he was like 72 and built this whole empire. Like, age has nothing to do with it. You don't need to retire when you, whatever. I've met people who were like 30 and they were retired, and all they did was play golf, made 5 phone calls for 10 minutes, maybe half an hour a day, and that's what was the work they were doing. And then they played golf again and had another beer and played another round of golf, and that was their day. Are they retired? Are they working? It's just a meaning what you give to the words, I think. But, you know, if you love what you do, you don't call it work. Going to work, I have to work. You don't have to do anything. If it comes from the heart, that's when you will wanting to do it. If you have to work, you're thinking in your head, and it's all like, so I have to do this, and it's all the must-dos instead of coming from what do I really want to do and what do I feel like doing. And I think that's a big difference for me. What do I want to do? What do I feel like doing? And I can do that till I'm 100. Till the day I have my last breath, that will be the day I stop working. And so many people stop working and retire and fall in that big gap and don't do what they love to do anymore and don't know what they want anymore. So is that then being happy? Reach that point of 55 or 60 or 65, whatever it is, and I retire, now I need to be happy, and they will fall in a big, big hole. So I have a different meaning to the word retire. I don't really use it, to be honest. And I find it an interesting conversation when people say and have such emphasis on that end goal of retiring.
Well, retirement is only a function of money. So, you know, if you're 20 and you've got all the money in the world, you can effectively retire. I suppose I might throw it out there. I know Gregory had his hand up, so he might want to add something. But what does retirement actually mean to people? You know, for me, retirement just means you don't have to work. You can choose to work. Anyone else? Gregory, you were going to say something, and then Angelica.
Yeah, I was just wanting to comment on retirement. Is it's like everybody's saying, if you're doing something you truly enjoy, which would be basically your life's work, it should be anyway, then when that time comes when most people retire, you're not going to want to, because that's what you enjoy doing it. You wake up every day and want to do it. So there is no retirement. Retirement for a lot of people, it seems, is their job. The job they go do that they don't really want to do. They can't wait to get to retirement so they don't have to do it anymore. But in my experience, what I've seen is once people get to that, then they start sitting. They spent their whole life doing something they don't want to do and never thinking about what they really want to do. But when they reach retirement, they don't know what they want to do. And they start sitting in the chair and growing old and deteriorating, saying they see things. I've seen people do this. They see something on TV and say, that looks like a lot of fun. I say, well, why don't you do that? Oh, I'm too old. And their life is basically over. They're still living, but they're not really living. They've given up. They've retired, and they don't know what they want to do or who they really are. They just sit there and deteriorate. And I think a lot of people that get caught up in jobs, like the masses, they never take the time to really think about who they are and what they really want to do. So when they get to that point, they have nothing to work with. And so I think COVID really, when a lot of people lost their jobs, or when that shut up came, a lot of businesses found out they could do things without those people. They never got their jobs back. A lot of them found other ways. They may have found out what they really want to do because they had no choice but to think. And maybe that's why they didn't come back, because everywhere I go, because I travel a lot, I keep running into people at businesses that say they're slow and they're behind schedule because they can't get people to come to work. I don't know how much of that is because they're getting government handouts, or how many of it possibly is because during the time that they couldn't go to work, they thought about what they really want to do, and now they're doing something better. I'm not sure the exact reason why so many businesses are having trouble getting people to come to work, but I do know when it comes to retirement, if somebody spends their whole life doing something they don't want to do and never thinking about who they are or what they really want to do, when they reach retirement, they have nothing to work with. And from what I've seen, they just begin to deteriorate, and that's really not living at all. So what's the point in working all the way to retirement just to sit and fall apart and go away?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Angelica, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I actually like what Nicolette says. In my world, like, I don't even believe in the word retirement. It's not in my vocabulary. I mean, I'm 69 now. I probably double quote should be retired. Well, I am retired. I've been retired all my life, and I'm going to continue to, right? And primarily, the energy comes from doing what you love to do. And that inspires me anyway. And, you know, the motivation to keep going and keep doing new things is purely and simply because I don't know how to do anything else, because that's what I've conditioned myself to do. So, you know, it's a hard look. The hardest thing for me is, and there have been times that I've been able to get quite resentful about it, no one should have to work to live. Who made that rule? You know, like, yeah, we can go and investigate and explore the history of money, and it will tell you there's always one handful or pocket of people that are in control of all of that. And we just have to accept it and then make the best of it that we know how. But I don't consider what I do working. I consider what I'm doing is what I'm doing. And it wouldn't matter if I'm in radio. It doesn't matter whether I'm, you know, in a studio sculpting. It doesn't matter where I am. I still do what I do. So,
Okay.
thank you, Paul.
No, you're welcome. Forced to work. Yeah, it's something that's played on my mind a long time. We won't talk about taxes. No, why do we have to pay personal tax? we will stay away from that one. Just quickly, and I've got to keep moving on, but both Adrian and Nicolette just wanted to say something. So if you can say what you want to say, but just try and keep it a bit brief so we can move on to the next part of this topic. Adrian, I think you had your hand up first.
I would let Nicolette go first.
Oh, you
I
being a
like-
gentleman. Okay. You are a
I-
gentleman.
Such a
I-
gentleman.
I
is a
think, I
gentleman.
think it's better. I think it's better because Go ahead, Nicolette.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a little mention that I always said I was 23 when I retired. That was the time we had one way to Sydney, and all we had was a backpack and a passport, and we traveled the world for 2.5 years, and
Yeah.
we did what we wanted to do. Everybody said, "Didn't you have goals?" And when were you going to do that? And for some of the moments I panicked. I'm like, oh, I need to do all this, this, and this. I'm like, no, that's what everybody tells me what I'm doing. We hit our goal straight away because we did it straight away the next day or next week or whenever we wanted to do it. And we traveled for 2.5 years. That was the most freedom I've ever had in my life. No responsibility, no nothing. And the happiest we were, just coming back to what Angelica was saying, was in Nepal. Nobody had anything, as so-called nothing, but they were happy. They had the biggest smiles on their faces. The kids
Yep.
were laughing. They had so much joy. They were playing with nothing, but they still had so much fun with dirt and rocks and whatever you found in nature. And that was the time in our lives because we were the happiest there. We didn't have anything except a backpack.
Yeah.
And you don't need much to be happy. Happy comes from the inside, and we were doing what we love to do, and we were retired when we were 23.
Fantastic. Adrian, the gentleman.
I think in this chapter, he almost touches and describes ikigai, which is something that you're good at, something that you love, and something that pays you well, and something that also helps the world. And having those four things intersect, he says it where he's talking about the new ways of marketing. If people see that you're only doing it to profit for yourself, so it's something that you love, it's something that pays well, and it's something that you're good at, but it's not helping the world, some people shy away from that. Particularly the millennials look for employers that have a mission that's outside of the company. So they look at what charity they do, what initiatives they're a part of. And if a company is too self-centered, they won't go and get that job. And also, yeah, but I mean, talking about the retirement thing, that most people are trying to retire from a job, which is just cash. And you have to remember, rich people have money, wealthy people have time. That means they have the freedom. If their child asks them something, they've got the time to explain it to them. They got the time to care for the people that they want to care for, and that happiness, that not having those desires, and they can have the happiness in not having too many wants and just looking after their needs. But overall, when I mean, I think back when I read this book first in 1997, I also, the same person who gave it to me, gave me a book called How to Retire by 35, about a couple with kids that decided they didn't need, in America, that they didn't need to have that much money to not go to work every day. And they worked it out, they budgeted, they cashed in their certificate, their CD, certificates of deposit or something, and they went and lived in cheap countries. And they were actually the first ones to go on those trips where people went to semi-developed countries like Bolivia and lived there for 6 months, or they went to the Yugoslav states and lived there for 3 months and then skipped around Europe and things like that. So I made a decision that I would not wait until I became a millionaire before I helped people. Before I was 30, I don't need to be a millionaire to help people. I need to help people who cross my path, and I don't need to get them all the way to the finish line. I need to get them to the next level that they're headed to, and then someone else may take over.
Fantastic. And that's actually one of the laws that is throughout this book is you reap what you sow. So if you're helping people, they will help you. If you're selfish and self-centered, well, you're not going to get very far. Well, I'm going to move on to the capital value of your services. Whoever knew that there was a way to value your services? The estimated estimate of your capital value equals annual salary times 16 2/3. So this is an estimate that your income represents 6% of your capital value. Anyone got any comments about that quickly before? And I don't want to spend too much time on this, but does anyone have any comments, or should we just go on to the 30 major causes of failure?
Move on.
Well, move on. I agree. All right, 30 major causes of failure. He's got 30. I want everybody to go and give me what they think their number one is in less than 2 minutes. And I'll start with Napoleon Hill himself. Adrian, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me, Adrian? Anthony?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm quickly actually looking at them now.
Well, you look at those. I will go
I'd say lack of self-discipline. That would be something that I've got to focus on more. Setting the appropriate times. I've got time between community service that I do to my work, to my family, obligations to you guys, the team. I've also got the course that I'm doing, which is One Life business course, and also in the process of developing a business. I've got to be disciplined in the time that I allocate, so I can. I've got priorities. Health is first, family, obviously income, and then business. And I've got to allocate the right times with everything, and that all takes discipline. So that's the major one that I've got to focus on at the moment.
Fantastic. Angelica, you're the next on my list.
Okay. Well, a lot of points there, 30 of them.
Yes.
And ironically enough, I don't believe any one of them will cause failure. What he's describing there are probably the weaknesses rather than the strengths of a human being. And every one of those weaknesses can be overcome. However, the weakness can only be overcome when there is a desire to do so and an awareness of recognition. So once you've done all that, then you can get busy with, well, okay, we can strike them off one at a time and say, what's the process to overcome the first one? What's the process to come over the second one? That's if you choose to agree that you have all of them. Now, in saying that, in order for myself to sustain a particular happy mode of equilibrium, now what that means to me is in the event of any circumstances that come to light that I am engaged in that are highly energized and negative, in order for me to maintain or sustain a certain equilibrium of not being affected, that takes work. And that work is the process of meditation and honoring what I believe in and knowing what I believe in that can't be shaken. So it's self-value, self-principle, self-love, self-appreciation, When all of those things are achieved, the rest will just go by the wayside. And, when we recognize, I did do all of that stuff. I had to look at those weaknesses point for point and say, where are my fears? Well, my biggest fear was I had a fear of life. When I was a child, I had an unexplained fear of life because there was no reason that I should have that. What is a fear of life? It means that I was living, or even as a child, playing in a way where I felt I was always going to do something wrong, or someone's going to pounce on me, or somebody's going to do something. And once the fear is recognized, you're able to then, through the process of awareness, recognize the fact that fear is only false evidence appearing real, and none of it is. It's all a delusion, all of it. And it all happens in the mind. And once you understand the fundamental of fear, and of course there is that reflex physical fear that protects you, we all have to have that, and it will come to the surface all on its own when it's called for. But everything else is like fear of losing a job, fear of the wrong partner, fear of family conflicts. There's so much of it. So that was my fear of life. And if I was going to overcome that, then, I had to find out, all right, if I'm not going to have fear, what am I going to trust in and have faith in that's going to keep me feeling like I am safe and like I am okay, and that everything will be okay. And that brought me to a place of lots of questioning about what is a God of my own understanding? What does that God look like? Do I understand that God enough to put all my trust and faith in that invisible intelligence, invisible agenda, double quotes, God is but a word, an energy field? How do you trust and have faith in that? And all I was able to do was keep trial, proven time and time and time again. You put it to the test, and that's how my confidence got built up. Because I always got great results in impossible situations that really no human power could have resolved. And, I've got faith and trust that's greater than the biggest ocean and bigger than the sky. And for me to be able to live freely in that knowledge is it's a wonderful place to be. That's all I can say. It's just a wonderful place to be.
Well, having faith and trust are two of the essential ingredients. So you're well on your way. If you're not there already, it sounds like you're already there when you want to be there. It also sounds like you're tapping into your infinite intelligence when with some of those things that you said. Nicolette, what's your take on the major cause of failure?
I thought it was interesting that they're talking about the failure being the negative part of it. And I think that's very much human nature. It's talking about the negative. I would say, can we change it like more? For me, it's personally more like it's not failures, it's the learnings you take out of something that might not have worked out in that particular time or circumstances. Is it a failure? According to who and compared to what is it a failure? Is it something, just one of those limited beliefs we need to be aware of, that if we don't have it, then there is no failure? But if I need to choose one, I would, all of them are, of course, as always, valid. But procrastination, for me personally, got a lot of laughs here, so I must not be the only one, and I know I'm not. But yeah, that's the procrastination. What is it? What do they always say? It's the time you never get back again, and time is the highest commodity we have in the world. What Adrian was just saying before. So yeah, power of now, and we live in the now. So do it now. Why tomorrow? Why next week? But for me, it's as well. If it's procrastination because it doesn't feel right, and I always said I follow my female gut feel, because that's always been right. So as long as I follow that, and then the timing might take a little bit longer. Usually it's in an instant, but sometimes you do overthink things, and that's when the procrastination starts in. But if you just follow what you want to do and make decisions pretty quickly, most of the time you'll be right. And I think for me, procrastination comes when I overthink it and go in my head rather than follow my heart and my intuition.
Yeah. What was I going to say? One of the things through this book is to make a decision quickly as well. So don't overthink it. Absolutely. And look, we all suffer with procrastination. Now, one of the reasons why I didn't wait till after Christmas and the New Year to start this group or this discussion was because of the fear of procrastination. I knew that if I had sat on it long enough, I'd have found an excuse not to do it. Adrian, have you added your what's it, major cause of failure?
I would say I have been guilty many times of all of these. And remember that he got this from interviewing people, and he distilled it into the 30 from what people had said. So probably people had maybe 2 or 3 of those that led to their failure, and he probably had to do a bit of cross-referencing and deleting to just narrow it down to 30 into those descriptions. If you held me to 2, I would say it is, one or more of the 6 basic fears is a big one, and also the overthinking, which was where one of the over caution, which can be related to everything. Fear of the over caution of how people will respond with imposter syndrome, or worrying about how people, what they will think or react, has been a large hurdle at different points in my life. But I think ultimately he was creating a list of things that you could avoid. And then he goes on later in the book and also in that chapter, he discusses the qualities of leadership. So really that goes back to what you want to be, not how you're going to do it or what you're going to do and what you're going to have, but what you're going to be. And so what are you going to be known as? Well, back in the 90s, I think a lot of leadership counselors and coaches, well, they weren't even called coaches back then, would do a test called the tombstone test. What do you want written on your tombstone for people to see? And it's a very difficult thing to do in Asia with Asian employees because of the taboo of death, and they would not do that test. They did not want to think about what was written on their tombstone. They were working towards the next meal. They were not working towards what they were in this life. They maybe were working towards what they were going to be in their next life, because they knew what their fate was in this life. So remember, this book was written in a you know, it was written in America before America was really getting in touch with indigenous people in America and also people around the world in a deep way as well. So we've learned a lot, and it's important to know that, yeah, certainly, if you look at the newspaper, the companies going out of business, and they failed to satisfy their customers or they failed to satisfy their employees, you could attribute it to one of these 30 things that they did wrong, or probably a handful of those 30 things that they did wrong that led to their failure. And, you know, I think the most important thing is people's awareness or mindfulness in their actions is making the choice on how you react to something, which includes external stimulus as well as internal desire. So do you make a choice to satisfy that desire, or do you make a choice to react to that stimulus from someone saying something, someone doing something? How do you react? That determines the failure, because if you make the wrong choice, that will cascade into lots of things. If you look at it's a great book I hope you all have read one day, called Outliers, that looks at the science of plane crashes, and it's never just the mountain. It's always 7 tiny little mistakes that the co-pilot was 10 minutes late waking up that morning, and another tiny little thing. So, you know, it's not these big things like procrastination, because that might be your personality, that might be your style. They say a lot of intelligent people do suffer from procrastination because you are overthinking it, but you're overthinking it because you're trying to please the largest number of people. It means you're thinking win-win, win-win. That's the world wins, the customer wins, your employee wins, and you win. So you do need to procrastinate a little bit. What happens is if you procrastinate chronically and you don't get anything done, or you don't know how to have a circuit breaker for yourself so that you don't indulge in anything for too long, because too much of a good thing is bad in general sense of that description, right?
Well, okay, thank you. There's a lot to digest there. And Gregory, did you tell us your failure? Your what was it? Major cause of failure?
Yeah, I want to kind of comment on what Adrian just said, though. I've actually, there's some professional people. One's a book writer that I know actually says that he schedules procrastination into his day because he knows it's going to happen. But yeah, I don't have that list of failures in front of me, but I think all of them can be more easily overcome if a person knows who they are and what they want. I think the lack of really knowing what you want and who you want to be is the biggest source of failure. There's so many people that don't know. I used to be one of them. And but if you know what you want and you want that more than anything, you're going to keep on. You're going to find your way past all of those different failures that he listed. I mean, you'll still encounter them. I've experienced all of them. I'm guilty of all of them at one time or another also. But if you really know what you want, you'll keep pushing for it. Nothing will stand in the way. And in Think and Grow Rich, he'll even comments that failure cannot cope with persistence. It's that persistence of what you really want that will push you past every other listed failure. He has so many, I can't really remember an exact one. He may talk about what I'm saying, but if not, I think that is the top failure. Because if you don't truly know what you want, then any of those reasons for failure on the list, any setback can knock a person off track, and they're searching for something else. But if you really know who you are, what you want, you keep on that regardless of anything that comes, because it's what you really want, then you'll persist past everything. You may have to work on some of those items, get rid of that from your life in order to make something happen, but that persistence is what's going to keep you moving in the right direction.
Okay, great, thank you. And I kind of agree with you. If you really know what you want, you don't encounter failure. You just encounter temporary defeat. And as he said that in a chapter prior, temporary defeat just means there's something wrong with your plan. Right, so to finish up tonight, we want to talk about the capitalist pigs out there, or are they pigs? Right, he goes on to explain a breakfast of an American family, and this was 100 years ago, so the dollars and cents are totally wrong. But you're sitting there, you're having orange juice from a different state. Now you're getting eggs from a farm, you're getting bacon from somewhere else, you're getting mushrooms from, and he went on to say that it's thanks to the capitalists that we can have the great lifestyle that we have. He addresses the capitalists. He refers to them as Wall Street, right? Has been responsible for the civilization we all live in. He gives the example of the family of the breakfast in New York, right? So who thinks that Wall Street gets a bad rap? Who wants to talk a little bit about Wall Street, and are they doing good? Are they doing bad? Come on, Gregory, I can see the smile on your face. I can see something ticking over in your head.
Well, I think it's both. I think they have good points and bad points. Everybody, apparently back in his day, even everybody's been against Wall Street. And I know there's a lot of bad that goes on up in there that's, for personal profit or whatever. They don't really necessarily always think about the little guy. But without that, without Wall Street, without that capitalism, nobody at any level is going to have the opportunities that they have today. So there's good and there's bad, just like with everything. Same thing with Wall Street. You got to have them, but that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of corruption in there as well. I don't think anything has ever really changed when it comes to Wall Street since it's began. And actually, even before it began, there's always been some sort of financial leader in different nations and different time periods. And I think it's always been, depending on that time period, there's been good points about it and bad points about it. It's like Angelica said earlier, though, and people really do have it better today than they have had before. And it's kind of the evolution of mankind. There's always going to be problems with government, always going to be problems in life, and there always has been. But when you look over the course of history, mankind and their technology and their living conditions are much superior now than they were 100 years ago or 200 years ago. So even though problems still exist, we are evolving in a better lifestyle overall.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if you have a look at how far we've advanced, we're living better than the kings and queens that lived 100 years ago. So that's definitely. Anyone else want to add into what Gregory? Yes, Adrian, and then Angelica. Oh, sorry, Angelica, then Adrian. God be the gentleman. I'll turn you on, Angelica.
All right. Is that better?
Yes, it is.
I totally agree with what Greg's saying. If anyone ever does a history into how money came about, how the credit system came about, how money came from a bartering system. There was a time where people bartered. There were merchants, trading merchants. That's easily explained in The Richest Man from Babylon. And the interesting thing about it is that money's yet, but it's just another product. It's no different to buying a shoe. Just that a shoe's a shoe and money's money. But we make too much of it because of our perceived value that money has. And that's just about all it is. Now, there is good and not so good in absolutely everything. There's always a balance of good and not so good. And everything that has come about over the years and over the decades is essentially growth. It's all growth. But at the end of the day, the thing that's still really remarkable is that it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter whether it's Wall Street. It doesn't matter whether it's the gas company. All these things have been thought out from an idea. And they've been persisted with until they've grown to where they are. And that's the magic in it. And it's, even when we ourselves find a niche and find a product and think, oh, this has never been done before. Elon Musk has got another one out. Never been done before, unique. Then there it is, the idea. Now it's coming to fruition. And as it comes to fruition, it's always going to have upside, downside. The name of the game is overcome the challenges as they present themselves. So, I think that money is very overrated personally. And there's not even there's almost no currency left. It's all done on computer now. It's just a typed number and that's about it. So, there will always, I think, I shouldn't say always, but so far, at this point, I cannot imagine that those that have got the world power of control of money that came out with the credit system, they're so well established and so clever. Has anyone ever read the Rothschild story?
I have not read the Rothschild story, but I have listened to the Island, the Creature from Jekyll Island, which is about the Federal Reserve. So it's probably a similar story.
Well, what's interesting is the manipulation processes that was used by Rothschild Sr. to his whole family and how he engineered a system whereby they would never, ever go broke. And to set up a trust that everyone can borrow from at interest that will always pay back into the trust and build the trust at the same time is ingenuity. That's clever. And you start with your family members and then branch out. You've got a trust fund that's growing through the family, then you can make it available to your employees. And all the while, who's the one that's getting the profits and the growth of wealth? The Rothschilds at the top. They own the trust. And so it goes, that's just one example. But I think sooner or later the currency will disappear out of the economy. I also think that there will be a monetary crash, an economic crash. What does it look like? Probably can't tell you. It's a gut feeling that I have. When you monitor and you watch closely what is happening on the stock exchange at the moment, there's so many variables. They're seeing things that they've never seen before and don't know how to cope with at the moment because they've never come across them before. So that already tells me that there's a shift and something new is coming along. And, whatever it's going to be, it's only going to be bigger and better and greater than what we've had. Because it always is. That's how it works. Adrian, it's your turn.
Before Adrian goes, I just want to make a few comments. Absolutely, you're right. I do think there is something bigger and better coming on. I do think it's based off what's on the back of Bitcoin, the blockchain, what's it, blockchain. I do think that's on its way in. With regards to the Rothschild, and I don't know if it's so much a Rothschild, but the Federal Reserve, is it actually a trust or is it the printing machine? That's just what I wanted to ask.
It's probably both.
I don't need you to answer that because it will be here all night. And we'll finish with Adrian. Adrian.
Look, first of all, I want to thank everyone for staying a bit later each time. And Gregory, I really had you in mind. That's why we extended this to 2 nights, because you weren't here last week. And as an American, I think most Americans appreciate money is not everything, health is. And the next big thing that is going to happen, certainly blockchain is more important than Bitcoin. Blockchain is like in this very book, when they're building the steel consortium and building the railroads, blockchain is like the railroads being built across America. It's the infrastructure that will control everything around the world, and it is something not to be ignored, because if you're not building that railroad and you're not putting something on it, you are going to be on the sidelines watching it go past. But it's not involving the Bitcoin. It's about how the blockchain is going to affect any kind of transaction, from intellectual property to real property to virtual property. So, but I think the thing that you're overlooking, or we're in this book, is the next big thing will be us. It's people who are taking time out of their life to make sure their progress is on track and that we're making the right decisions. I don't think anyone here is abusing their health. I don't think anyone here is not trying to break the cycles that they were born out of or that they grew up with. And I think we've all got our pulse on what's happening around the world. But the irony is we can't see the wood for the trees. We're looking for the biggest thing. The biggest thing is what we're going to create individually and together, because people are different. People look at what health has become around the world. Look at what women have become around the world. Look at how we educate children and how we treat children. I remember growing up, and 1980 was Year of the Child, and there were way more children in a bad situation than I believe there are now. We were, we started all the recycling campaigns and the anti-litter campaigns, and look where we are now. We're cleaning up the seas, we're cleaning up space, we're empowering everybody, not just women, not just people of color, not just people with disabilities. We're empowering people who have multiple abilities. People like that before were forced to choose one. And that's the great thing about those 30 reasons for failure. They may not all be the dominant reason for your failure. They may be the dominant reason for one particular failure you have, but you are not going after one goal. You come from a family. Most of us are a sandwich generation. We're looking after the generation below us and the one above us and the one we're in, and we're the ones looking to stay in the moment. And there are other people, and they're failing because they're not staying in the moment. They're not making decisions that are good for everybody, and they're getting caught out, or people are walking away from them. People are reading labels. People are using their money to speak. But I feel sorry for the people in America with such a bad healthcare system, and it must be terrifying. We're somewhat lucky here, and my Thai wife does appreciate the healthcare system here in Australia. With the amount of times we've taken the kids to hospitals and doctors and things, we are very lucky compared to those other countries, and we should realize that it doesn't matter how much money you've got. If you don't have your health, you're not going to enjoy it, and you're not going to have people around you that are enjoying it either. So I think just smile, everybody. We're all trying to make it a better world, and we're starting at home, I think.
That's well said, Adrian. And again, I think earlier on I mentioned one of the great things about living in Australia is our welfare system. And I do not know a country in the world that has a better welfare system. There might be, I just don't know it. And you're right, if, like the government gives my wife or our family, I don't know, I think it's $1,000 or something for the dentist a year or whatever, or 500, whatever it is. So we can now send our kids to a dentist, and it's not costing us. It's only if they've got really bad teeth, then it does cost us. And I know it costs us because one of my kids has braces. I want to finish tonight with these words from Napoleon Hill. He says, "Freedom does not and cannot bring riches without effort. One dependable method of accumulating and legally holding riches, that is by rendering useful service. It's known as the law of economics." So with that, I'll say good night, everyone. Next week, we come back and we'll be talking about decision. Is it decision? I think it's decision. So, and that's an important one because we all need to make a decision in order to create something in our lives. So with that, thank you all for being here, and I'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.